Welcome to the Strategic Veteran, where we chart the course from service to civilian triumph. I'm Adam Peters, a veteran, entrepreneur, and your fellow navigator in the quest for a life of impact and fulfillment. My mission is simple: to empower you with the tools and stories that turn challenge into opportunity. Having walked the path from active duty to where I stand now, I understand the search for purpose that comes with hanging up the uniform. It's a path I've walked, with its trials, its tribulations, and its victories, and it's a journey we're on together. This podcast is more than just conversation. It's a beacon for those seeking to redefine our missions through entrepreneurship. It's about igniting the entrepreneurial spirit that lives within us, the spirit that compels us to create, lead, and make our mark on the world. Here we connect with veterans who have built businesses, sparked change, and found their purpose in the marketplace of ideas. They're not just surviving, they're thriving. They've transformed their service into startups, their experiences into enterprises, and they're proof that you can too. So whether you're scribbling business plans on napkins or stepping into the arena of innovation, remember, you're not alone. You're in good company. So let's explore these stories of transformation and take the first steps together on our path to purpose. Let's begin. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Strategic Veteran. I'm your host, Adam Peters, and today we have the honor of speaking with Mark Toner, a retired U.S. Navy Lieutenant Commander who served for an impressive 22 years. Mark's journey is a powerful testament to resilience, leadership, and transformation. Mark's life changed forever at the age of 15 when he became a victim of sexual abuse. This traumatic experience marked the beginning of a long and challenging battle with his inner demons. Despite these challenges, Mark joined the Navy at 20, driven by the stories of adventure and service shared by a friend. His early years in the Navy were marked by anger, recklessness, and a struggle with his past. However, a pivotal encounter with a chief who believed in him led to Mark receiving a commission as a supply officer, setting himself on a path to greater responsibility and success. Throughout his military career, Mark faced numerous personal battles, including dealing with the aftermath of his abuse and the impact it had on his mental health and relationships. Yet he persevered, ultimately retiring in 2022 after a successful career where he accomplished things he never thought possible. Today, Mark is on a mission to share his story with others, hoping to provide a beacon of hope for those struggling with similar issues. He believes that the only way to overcome feelings of shame, self-hate, and depression is to confront one's past head-on. Mark's goal is to help other sexual abuse victims face their demons and find a way out of the darkness. So join us as we dive into Mark's incredible story, exploring his military service, his personal battles, and his ongoing mission to inspire and support others. So let's dive in and warmly welcome Mark Toner, a true embodiment of what it means to be a strategic veteran. Mark, brother, take two. Welcome to the show, man. Super grateful for your patience and excited to get further than 10 minutes into the show this time.
Yeah, like I said on our previous our first take, an honor to be here. I really do appreciate you inviting me on here, and you know we're going to have some issues, and that's fine with me. It's important that we have this discussion, and hopefully it helps some other people. And it looks like we got a good feed now, so I think it was my laptop. So.
Hey, we this is how we figure those things out, man. So let's just dive right into your story, man, because you've got an incredible story and a mission that needs to be heard, and I'm grateful to be a platform where you tell that story. So let's just jump right in and share a little bit about your early life and what inspired you to join the Navy.
Yeah, so just real quick background. I'm from East Detroit, Michigan. It's now called East Point. Right outside Detroit, 10-mile road. So 8 miles is the whatever you want to call it, dividing line, I guess. So grew up there. My parents, great parents, didn't make a lot of money, but they were so good with money. Too bad I didn't get that for a long time. But anyway, it was. I had a really good childhood. I had a lot of friends, always outside playing sports, doing all kinds of stuff. So as I kind of talked about on our first take, I have quite a few family members who were in the military, from Navy, Marines, Army. My dad was drafted. He served 2 years in the Army. So there was a lot of history of military service in my family. I wouldn't say that was always on my mind. It wasn't something that really I don't say it didn't have a factor in me joining, but it really didn't cause me to join. Right? It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to follow in so and so's footsteps or in my family's footsteps. Um, my story, I graduated high school. Um, and my senior year was terrible, and we'll get more into it. But that's when I was going to court for the sexual abuse stuff, and that's when the trial, all that stuff. And of course, the last thing I wanted was for that to get out in school, which I don't know how it didn't, but it didn't. Um, so I graduated high school and I went to the local community college. I played soccer there for a year, and that was kind of I looked forward to that, man. It was awesome. And I was doing okay, but things I didn't like the coach. So I didn't want to go back the second year and play, which I regret now, of course. Um, and I wasn't doing well in school. I started doing worse in school. I was drinking. I was just reckless and, just, I was lost, for obvious reasons that we'll get into. But so it was funny. I had a friend from school. He wasn't a close friend, but he was a friend of mine. Joined the Navy right out of high school. Came back for a friend of ours that was getting married, a bachelor party, and we sat at a table all night. And he told me about his service. He was stationed overseas in London. Worked or he lived in a loft. He was a communications guy, so he said he went to work every day in civilian clothes. Making that $20,000 a year, and at the time, I was working at Sears in the paint department, you know, and I didn't like anything I was doing, man. And I had some bad luck here and there. So I literally sat with him and I was like, damn, this is my way out, for lack of a better term. I saw an opportunity. And again, I don't know if you believe in God or not you particularly, but anybody listening to this, but that was kind of like God opening my eyes and being like, hey, dumbass, you need to do this. And I have no idea how I did it because that's the last thing I wanted to do was join the military at the time. But I went home, the next morning, I'm telling my mom, I'm going to join the military. And she was crying, she was so happy. And then we went down to the recruiter station, and that was kind of the start of 22 years of service.
Yeah, brother. No, and that's awesome, dude. From having no interest really in joining to then a 22-year career, getting out as a lieutenant commander, especially, that's amazing and obviously part of your story. So the Navy, what did you end up doing in the Navy, and how did you know that was for you? Just to kind of clarify, who you are and your journey here.
Yeah, so we went to the recruiter station, started the process, and then went to MEPS. Did the whole, whatever you do there. Gosh, it's been so long,
Fucking
but
duck walk
I,
naked.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely had to do that, and
That's what you do at MEPS. You duck walk naked and you
yeah,
pull your butt cheeks open for somebody
yeah,
to
yeah.
check out what's going on down
And
there. That's
I did
MEPS.
okay. I did okay with that. So, I was accepted, and I rem- I remember sitting in a cubicle though. It was my mom and I, and then the recruiter or whatever. And he's like, I did pretty well on my ASVAB, and he said you qualify for the best thing you qualify for is advanced electronics. They did bring up the nuclear program, and I was like, nah, hell no. And so and it came with an $11,000 signing bonus. I'll be honest with you, that's what I saw. And it was a 6-year commitment. So I was like, hell, it sounded like a good gig. And when I get out, I'll have something to fall back on. So whatever, sign me up. Um, and then so I wanted to originally I was training, I wanted to go try out for Navy SEALs, go to BUDS and all that. And you know, we will talk about it more, but my fear, my lack of confidence, all that stuff just kind of derailed that. And it sucks. I don't want to say I regret it because obviously I wouldn't have met my wife, I wouldn't have my kid, all that stuff that follows. But um, it's always in the back of my mind though. Like, okay, I know if I would have done it then, I wouldn't have made it. There's no way in hell because I just didn't have the mental. toughness to do it. So I joined. I was a electronics technician. That was my job, and I worked on radar on the ships and stuff. And I didn't really like it. I'll be honest with you. Again, it was a good thing to learn. I learned some cool stuff. Don't get me wrong, and it was cool working on big radar, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. And so I I was again, my wife. I thought she was. I can't believe she's still with me today, but I thought she was going to kill me because I was this like I'm all about dreamers, but I was this unrealistic like dreamer. I had all these ideas, right? Oh, I'm gonna open my own restaurant one day. And it was scaring the hell out of her because she knew like the Navy was the best thing for me. But I don't think I wanted to stay in the Navy until I probably hit like my 15-year point, and then I kind of accepted that I'm probably gonna
You're
stay.
here. That's crazy, man. Because I usually hear people say right around like for me it was year six. Year six is when I decided like this is a career, and I hear that pretty common for most people. I don't often hear people say, "Oh, it was year 15 when I was basically in def at that point." you
Well,
know?
I'll tell you why. I mean, it's your mindset, right? And my mindset was it wasn't there yet. So I was doing my job as an electronics technician, and I fast forwarding, I was going to get out, right? I had my first son was born in 2005, so he's 19 now. That changed everything for me. I'll be honest with you. That was kind of the biggest turning point in my life. Um, so that was kind of like, okay, I need to get my shit together. So I went back to school. I started going back to school nights, online, going to school, St. Leo University on Langley Air Force Base. And I was like, I'm going to get a business degree. So I just got motivated. It just clicked. And I did that. I got my degree. And then I'm like, shit, I'm going to get out and make a ton of money, right? I'm going into finance and I'm going to work for Edward Jones, right? So I start going that route. And at the time I was in E5 and I was doing pretty well, right? I was making, I don't know, 50,000 a year, whatever. And I started getting into the interview process with Edward Jones just beginning and come to find out, oh yeah, you're going to start out at $25,000 a year and you're going to have to like basically be a salesman to get your clients. And it really hit me at that point. I'm like, okay, I've been in for almost 8 years now. And, oh man, it just I wasn't feeling it. And my
Yeah,
wife was freaking
the
out.
thought of having to start, first of all, that's half your income, so that's a huge reset, right? Like that's not insignificant to have to go. You're used to making 50. We'll just say 50, and you're going to start at 25, and you're going to have to grind selling. I've done that. I did that in the insurance industry when all the college money ran out after I had exhausted all those resources. I was like, this sucks, dude. Like eating what you kill is a rough life, particularly because that takes a couple of years for you to build a pipeline that really pays you well from all of that. So I totally understand what you're saying when you started going through that interview process. That's a big mind fuck for sure.
Yeah. And, you know, I, so this is where I can't even remember where it started, but I was on the fence, right? And my brother-in-law, he's a retired Navy chief, right? We joined around. Well, I joined the day before he did, and we became best friends like after boot camp. But I remember one day we were standing at his house on his front lawn, and he basically told me like man the fuck up and make a decision. You're either gonna get out or you're gonna stay in. I mean, you need, and it kind of hit me then. Okay, I'm gonna commit to something. Well, I had I was talking at work with somebody and I was like, oh, I got my business degree. I want to go into business. And they're like, well, why don't you apply for a commission and do the business of the Navy as supply officer? They pretty much do business for the Navy. Okay, let me back up now, right? The last thing I ever wanted to be was an officer. Okay. And and the reason why is because I never had a good example to follow. All the officers I saw were completely disconnected. I literally had, when I was on deployment, we were in the shop playing cards and a fight broke out. The division officer literally walked in, saw what we were doing, pushing and stuff, and just turned around and walked right back out. I mean, the dude didn't even say shit, didn't do anything. And I'm like, you know, I don't know what kind of language you can use here, but
You can use whatever language you want. You
all
can
right.
say fuck, shit, damn. It doesn't matter. This is open forum, man. Be who you are.
Okay.
Authenticity speaks here.
It was just I couldn't believe it, right? It was just mind boggling to me. And then I just had other I had one I had one officer, okay, where I was on a carrier and I was just doing my daily cleaning. I was cleaning toilets and stuff. And this dude would literally, he was a lieutenant commander, 04. He would literally stand by me, talk to me, and clean. He would steal me cleaning supplies from other places and bring them to me. And I'll be honest, this dude was like, I was like, is this guy real? I mean, and that was, and that was the catalyst for me. Like, I was like, first of all, there's no way I'm going to get commissioned. And I don't want to say that in a bad way. I worked hard, but I didn't network. I didn't know anybody. I didn't put myself out there. I didn't play the political game. I had the chief though, right? That you kind of mentioned in the intro. This guy, I mean, I can't even explain it. He pretty much told me, you're going to get commissioned. Like, and that's all he told me. And the guy guided me. And I never really had a good chief either until this guy. And this dude, like, just the faith he had in me, the confidence, and he took me through that process. And I'll never forget it. I was sitting in his office in December of 2007, and he's like, "Hey, Mark, come here, come here." And I sat down. He's like, "This is where they're going to tell you you got picked up." And he didn't know for sure. And yeah, I was sitting right there, and I heard it, and I was just like I had to almost pinch myself. And I never lost that feeling when I got commissioned. I had to pinch myself the whole time. And what I did is I took all those bad experiences, and I remembered that one officer, and that's what I did. I went out. I was the officer that got yelled at by my boss or something because I'm sitting here sweeping with my sailors. But the thing is that's where you learn the most about your sailors, right? When you're next to them, sweeping the P way, doing that stuff because they start opening up to you, they start talking to you, they trust you. Um, and that was my whole thing. Like I didn't forget where I came from. And I mean, that's how I kind of built my career, whether it got me promoted or not. That's what I was going to do. And it always worked out for me.
Dude, I absolutely love that you took that approach because it's kind of the epitome of what it means to be a servant leader, right? You're leading by example by sweeping the floors. You had an officer show you what that looked like by stealing you cleaning supplies. And you recognize like this is how I can know my sailors. This is how I can be the best leader for my sailors is by spending time with them, doing the shit that I'm asking them to do that most officers aren't willing to do and most senior NCOs aren't willing to do. However, I think that might be a little bit of a I already paid my dues, it's your turn to pay your dues kind of thing because I've swept many a floors and cleaned many a toilets and burned many a barrels of shit. You know what I mean? So you talked about early in your career you struggled with anger and depression. I assume that all of that is related to the unresolved trauma from when you were 15, and so I think now is probably the best time to probably dive into that because this chief, that you met, he significantly impacted your life. I'm willing to bet he kind of saw through all the bullshit you had going on and really kind of helped you arrive at this conclusion. Like you said, in your own words, you had to face this head on. So, am I correct in assuming that?
Yeah, I think so for sure. I mean, I think he saw something. And this is the thing. So the sexual abuse occurred when I was 15, right? And it probably 15 to 16. And this was at my first real job. I mean, right? The guy I worked for. And, you know, so from 15 to 16, um, and your mind, like, and I write about this on LinkedIn and stuff, like, your mind, it's amazing, right? Its sole purpose is to try to protect you. And that's pretty much what my mind did. When stuff was happening, I was somewhere else.
Dissociated completely, I'm
Right,
sure. Yeah.
exactly, disassociating. And what happened was, is I would say from 16 to I think it was 18, I had completely forgot about it. Like I buried it so far down, and I like to describe it as you take this stuff and you start burying it, and it starts seeping into your soul, right? It goes into the fabric of who you are, and eventually it's going to come out in one way or the other, whether it's drinking, drugs, violence, anger. And I started noticing this my senior year, my soccer season. I just got really angry and aggressive. I was always aggressive and competitive, but this was different.
There's a
I
whole new
noticed,
level. Yeah.
yes. And it was just reckless. It wasn't even playing anymore. It was just recklessness. And that's kind of when it started. And, it got to a point where one night, I remember standing in my kitchen one night, and I was either going to kill myself or I was going to tell somebody. And I was like, I can't imagine telling somebody. But I was like, what stopped me from killing myself was, first of all, my mom. I couldn't imagine doing that to my mom. But secondly, and I wrote about this, and this is, people laugh and stuff, but it was Dennis Rodman's book, Bad as I Want to Be. Believe it or not. I'm a Pistons fan, right? So I was a big Dennis Rodman fan, um, before he got all crazy. But, whatever. I read his book, and it just something spoke to me, and it was like it was weird. It just gave me, I don't know if it was a sense of hope or just to stop with the bullshit and just start moving forward. But I decided I was going to tell my mom, so I wrote a letter, gave it to her one night. She wouldn't let me leave the room, um, and yeah, she read it, cried her eyes out, took me to the police station, and probably well, that started the whole thing. But so fast forward, so my whole senior year, well, not my whole senior year, but most of it, I was going through trial. Nobody, and come to find out, this guy did it to a bunch of people before me. And then recently, I was looking him up because I was going to go back home one day and confront this guy, not in an angry way, but just let him know, like, hey, dude, like, this is what you did to people, and because I'm not angry about it. Um, he's back in prison though. He did it again. And it's sad because somebody else has to go through that now, and that's why I do what I do. But you know, going through that trial was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I'm literally sitting up there. I got this lawyer poking holes, trying to poke holes in my story. You almost feel like you're a liar, and But this is the thing. Okay, I went through that, and then I kind of stopped after that. I kind of tried to stuff it back down, forget it happened. I joined the Navy. I told them I was seeing a counselor, but it was for regular school stuff, right? The Navy had no idea. Um, so yeah, it follows you until you confront it. So it followed me into the Navy. Thought I got over it because the guy was behind bars, but no, it doesn't go away. So it
So
kept
the
creeping up.
closure that I assume would have come from going through that trial and seeing this man, it was a man, correct? Yeah, seeing him get what he has coming and get locked up. I would assume that would be some form of closure for the victim or someone in your situation. But you're sitting here saying, hindsight in 2020, you stopped doing the work and confronting it when you probably should have continued to confront it, which would have saved you a whole lot more time. Is that what I'm to understand?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's and I'm not saying well, I can't say that's how it should be for everybody, but I guarantee you that's the way it should be for most people. Like you like I said, you stuff this stuff down and it just rots you from the inside out. And you're going to deal with it one way or the other. Um, and the thing is it doesn't go away. All right. Like it's always going to be there. I don't, and I accept that now, and I'm okay with that. Like I almost, I don't want to say I'm to the point, I'm not glad it happened, right? I would never go through it again, but I also wouldn't change anything now because I have the power to help others. I didn't, and my whole message is I didn't have a mentor to help me go through it, especially a male. You just don't hear that. You don't, and nobody knew in the Navy. I hid this shit from the Navy my whole career. Never went, I didn't go to medical, right? I just stayed away, and it kind of hurt me now when I did my post retirement stuff, of course. But
Yep.
it's
Should have
yeah,
documented.
I mean, damn. And it's like the stigma though, man. I was
Yeah.
afraid it was going to ruin my career, my reputation. Um, and so, yes, I went to the trial. The trial gave me closure, absolutely. But it's not over, man. Like you still have all of these feelings and stuff that have to be dealt with. It's not just done right there.
When it's always it's a constant thing. Having overcome my own trauma, everybody's trauma is their own. I'm not going to sit here and compare mine to yours and yours to everybody else's, because that's not productive. It's not a dick measuring contest. It's literally just everybody's trauma is their own, and that affects you in whatever way it affects you. And it took me till last year doing the psychedelic thing through Heroic Hearts Project to really understand what my trauma was all about. And that stuff doesn't go away, but what happens is you become very aware of it and what it's doing to you, and then you learn how to control that and understand, this isn't my fault, this doesn't have to make me who I am. This definitely impacts me, and I understand that this is responsible for shaping me, but I don't have to let it define me and be the be all end all. Am I kind of hitting that right?
Yeah, damn, absolutely. And that's my damn. It's crazy, right? Because you said it, and what I was doing is I was letting my past dictate my present, right? I mean, because there's no future. I mean, but I was letting my past dictate my present, and all that stuff that happened, and I was pulling that forward with everything. I mean, in my marriage, again, I don't know how my wife's still with me. She's like the greatest in the world. Um, the Navy, like I was so angry. Just I was. It was. I shouldn't have had a career. I mean, honestly, I was reckless. I just didn't get caught doing the stupid shit I was doing. And I hate to say that today, but I use that with my sailors, right? I try to mentor them, and it was something I didn't want to deal with, right? And I'll be honest, it wasn't until probably within the last, I don't know, 5 years where I got serious. Like that, I wrote about it before, but my last deployment in the Navy, 11-month COVID, we hit two ports. We had to stay on the pier. It sucked, man. And I'm the supply officer. I was, logistics guy. So it was more work for us in port, me and my team. But I made a commitment to myself. I said at the beginning of that deployment, I said, I'm going to have a lot of time because we're not going to be hitting ports. I'm going to focus on me. I'm going to confront everything. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to come up with questions, and I'm going to really think about the answers, and I'm going to answer them. That's the thing, right? We have these really good like journaling growth questions or whatever, but we always, like, I would sit there for a couple minutes and be like, I can't answer this. I don't know the answer to this. But I actually sat there and I started just digging in. I started addressing my past, and that's when things really started to change for me. Um, it was hard though, right? Because it's, the sexual abuse thing. It's like, dude, I mean, people are gonna look at me like I'm a freak. Like, you were 15. What the hell? Did you like it? I mean, these were all the things going through my head. Um, and it's such a lie, right? It's such bullshit. And I don't care if anybody said that shit to me today. It doesn't matter anymore. I don't give a shit what people think. Like, I know what my mission is now. I don't care. I don't care what people say or what they think of me, because those aren't the people you want to associate with anyway. If they're so, a
Yeah,
lot
those
happened.
are the people that need to go look in the mirror, because they're projecting something that they're avoiding themselves, right? They're not doing the work on themselves. And I want to ask you, when you did decide to do the shadow work, because that's what it sounds like you did, was basically shadow work, like all that shit that we don't want to face about ourselves. Those questions, you are more than capable of answering those questions. You didn't want to answer those questions, and I've had a similar situation myself, where I've sat in front of a bunch of questions on a piece of paper to do the work, and I didn't want to answer them either. But I'm really curious, when you did start telling your story, um, not only was it cathartic, but how did you find that all those lies you were telling yourselves about people, did people come out to support you in droves? Did anybody look at you any differently?
No, that that's the thing, right? Um, And this is kind of with anything. This was when I was going to post on LinkedIn for the first time, right? I'm terrified. I'm like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to see this, and they're going to nobody. I won't say nobody cares, right? But you're not as important as you think you are. And I say that in a good way, meaning, when I started telling my story, I was terrified, but I knew, like, I think I was telling you before we started recording. For a few years, I wanted to help out sexual abuse survivors. I didn't know how I was going to do that. I had no idea, but I couldn't even really come to grips with my own story. And then it just hit me. I was like, the only way I'm going to do this is by telling my story, especially being a male and having this background. So I finally got to that point where, like, I was ready. I knew I had to do it, and I just had to get over it. And I did. And the thing is like, nobody has said anything negative. And as a matter of fact, I've gotten a few responses from people in DM saying how great it was to see what I was posting and other abuse victims. And it's tough though, right? Because we talked about this, Adam, before, where it's like a double-edged sword. You have a great message, but you don't feel like anybody's really listening to it or liking what you post and stuff. And that's kind of how I felt, and I still do. But at the same time, I also know it's a very sensitive subject, right? So I think about it this way: there's probably a lot more people reading than I know. And I try to keep that in mind, like why I'm doing this, right? It's it's more than just people leaving comments and stuff, and we all know that why we do what we do. But it was way better than I thought it would be, and it's never as bad as you think it's going to be, right?
Totally agree with you because I have the same kind of. It took me forever to get started, and now that I've moved into posting more like talking head type videos, I still. You would think that after recording 48 of these episodes and just having a blast doing it, that it wouldn't be hard for me on my morning walks to pick up my phone and just say whatever I'm thinking. But that's actually way harder than I thought it was going to be. And then, yesterday we talked about this before we recorded. I had a bad day. I let the undisciplined thoughts win, and it just ruined most of my day until, towards the end of the day, I did a recording with an amazing MARSOC guy and then had a conversation with another podcaster where I really got to explore some of the stuff I was feeling. And the conclusion I came to is like, you have a solid message. You're doing good work. Just keep doing that and keep sending the message out there that you want to send, because the people who are meant to find it will find it. And that's all I can worry about. And we did talk about that before we recorded. And it's so great to hear that, like, even for me, right? Like, I'm not alone in that imposter syndrome or in the chasing of the followers, because it amplifies my message. I'm not chasing vanity metrics and followers to build this giant following and being an influencer. I'm doing that because I genuinely want to help the veteran community, right? Like, that is my whole mission. That's why the God or the universe or whoever's listening to this, whatever you want to call that, to me, it's the universe. That's the path that I was put on here on this earth to do, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. I'm not going to stop doing it, no matter the number of likes or follows or comments or whatever. And so, I get it, man. I'm right there with you. And that's how I found you. I found a random post like, who's this Mark Toner MBA guy on LinkedIn, and playing the game, right, the hook or whatever, and then I click more and it's like, oh shit, this dude's talking about something fucking real, right? Like, this is what needs to be out there. And I think our first interaction was me inviting you to do this show, right? And you were like, hey man, I'm honored that you want me to come tell my story on your show, but I'm not really an entrepreneur. I want to be, but I just don't know what direction I'm going. And I was like, that is enough for me, because someone is out there sitting with the same thing that you sat with for all those years, that served in the military and did wonderful things for their country. And now they're sitting in this dark fucking hole and they don't know how to get out of it. So who would I be to not be able to help the veteran community by having somebody on here tell your story, because you haven't made a dime in a business yet. I think that's fucking absurd, right? The fact of the matter is you know what direction you're headed. You just don't know what that looks like yet. And I'm so grateful that you agreed to do this, man, because this is the stuff that needs to be talked about.
Yeah, and what you said, I really thought about what you said when we first got together, and you're like, I can't remember if you asked, do you consider yourself an entrepreneur or are you an entrepreneur? And I was like, no, man, I haven't done shit. And you're like, well, you pretty much said, yeah, you are. And that was like powerful, right? Because then I went back and I thought about what you said, and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I am building something. And that was really powerful. And that kind of helped me reframe how I was looking at what I was doing. And I think that was so powerful, and I appreciated that.
Dude, I've got chills right now, brother. Thank you so much because I'm just out here just trying to tell good people's stories that I know are going to make a difference for the community, and that's what I saw for you, right? Like you genuinely are. From the first post of yours that I read, I was like, this dude is going to build something that's going to help people.
Yeah, and I do. I'm starting to get more ideas and stuff, and but you said it though, man. There is veterans, sitting in a dark room right now, contemplating killing themselves. Um, that more than we know that have been through sexual abuse, and just like me, never said anything in the military. And it's like I can't. I just those are the ones I'm trying to really get to before it's too late. And it's such a when you have a mission, it's like that. It's so powerful. And I was talking to you about this. I think when we first started recording on the first take was I was on LinkedIn for a while, right? I had no, I like you. I hated social media. And I was like, what the hell? Like networking. Okay. But I started reading more and more, and I'm like, oh shit, okay, I'm gonna get into this thing. So I got into it, and it did help me get my current job and everything, but something didn't feel right. You know what I'm saying? Like I was doing it for a while, and it felt like it was forced. Like I was just coming up with this stupid content. So I got off, and I probably left for 8 to 12 months. And then when I started figuring out how I wanted to help people, I'm like, well, shit, no wonder why I got off, because I wasn't authentic. Like that wasn't me. So that's when I decided to get back on. And now it's like, this is who I am. Like, this is my mission. This is what I'm doing. And I don't care what anybody thinks. And I don't care if all I say every day is talk about sexual abuse, because it needs to be talked about. And the stigma needs to be changed. We can't, it's sad because the ones that were abused feel like they're doing something wrong. Like it's their fault. They're, all that crap. And that it's such a lie. So it's like I'm here to stick up for those that don't have a voice right now, and hopefully give them a voice. And I got some ideas and all, but right now it's being able to get that message out, and hopefully, like we talked about, more people are reading it than I know. And
I know they are, brother. I know they are for sure. So let's go back to you said it wasn't until year 15 that you decided you're going to make a career out of the Navy, which I think is, that's incredible because that's really not common. Most people know, I would say, before year 10 if they're going to stay in or not. And so you did your first 5 years before you got your commission?
no, 8.
8 years. So 8 years you did your commission. So you're a commissioned officer at this point. And how did you? I know you said that this chief wanted you to put in for your commission because you had your degree, and he basically was telling you you're going to get picked up, and you weren't believing it or whatever. How do you end up from an electronics guy to a supply officer? I don't understand how the Navy works. I wasn't in the Navy. My expertise is obviously the Army. So I just want to understand, because like in the Army, if you go get a commission, there's a really good chance you're just going to keep your branch. You're going to just like an enlisted infantry guy which I don't understand why you would ever fucking do this. And I've met several of them over my career that would make E7 and then they would start over as a second lieutenant in the infantry. And I'm like, no fucking thank you. No, 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 no way in hell would I ever do that. And, it's great for them because they go on, one of them I think is about to pin full bird colonel. So good for him. What an awesome career. Most of them end up, majors, early majors before they retire, just because the way it takes time to get E7 and then time to get back to major. So I'm just curious how that worked out for you. And like, was it the right path? Did you enjoy that? Did that make your career better? Because I know you talked about having no electronics experience when you come into the Navy, and you just didn't feel. You said it was cool, but you were just like, this doesn't resonate with me. This is not what I want to be doing. So I want to understand that, because I think that's important as well.
Yeah, and I'm not okay. So I hated the Navy for yeah, probably, I don't know if it was exactly at 15, but it was a lot longer than normal. But the reason why I hated it wasn't because of the Navy, it was because of me, right? It was my mindset, it was my thinking. It was all on me. The Navy's the best thing that ever happened for me. So it was really my attitude and what I was going through, and that's why I say that because I kept thinking I was going to get out. Oh, I'm going to get out. I'm going to get out, and then I finally accepted it later on. Like, no, this is where you need to be. Like, and then at that point, a little after that, I thought I was going to go to 30 years. I mean, because what I loved, I definitely think I picked the right path once I got commissioned. I loved helping sailors. Like that was my biggest joy was just helping them just turn things around, hearing them say, sir, I appreciate it. And I never got used to being called sir or Mr. Toner. It's like, what the fuck? Call me Mark. I mean, but of course you can't do that. But anyway, my whole thing was, stay humble and be genuine. So my biggest, like, I loved walking around just saying, hey, what's up, to whatever sailor, and listening to about their families and stuff like that. And that's what I loved. And what I loved too about being an officer is I had more ability to make change. Um, I could really like push back on people, a lot more people. And I loved it because I didn't have to just, there was an order, go do it. No, it's like, that's fucking stupid. I'm not doing that. Of course, unless it was my boss or something. But even then, I would try to professionally provide feedback and stuff. And I loved I had that ability. Um, so my whole goal was to just help sailors and help them get to wherever they want to be. Like, whether it's getting out, if they were getting out, I started talking to them about LinkedIn. I started talking to them about having a plan, because what I hated the most when I was a junior enlisted sailor was you couldn't tell people you wanted to get out, right? Because then it would just screw you over the rest of the time you were there. Oh, this guy's not committed. And so I let them know, like, dude, I just want to help you. Like, I don't care if you get out. You don't have to stay in the Navy. It's not for everybody. Um, and I did. That was, I felt like I was on the path I was supposed to be on. And then, of course, especially during the deployments, it's hard. You know that people have personal shit going on back home.
That shit gets amplified on deployments too, right? Like Jody letters and fucking man, yeah. I like what you said about just affecting change with Joe, leading sailors to, the Army really, at least in my experience, wasn't super bad. We didn't treat people who were getting out any differently, not down for the cause or anything like that. And I, as a leader, particularly, as a senior NCO, what I hated the most, and I was like you, I pushed a plan on these guys getting out, because what I would hate is those phone calls like, hey, Sergeant Peters, can you get me back in the Army? And it's like, no, dude, first of all, I'm not a recruiter. Second of all, I don't even know anybody at recruiting command. I can't even take care of myself when I call branch to get an assignment that I want. You know what I mean? Like I can't do fuck all for you, but I bet you're wishing you would have listened to the advice I was trying to give you before you got out, instead of blowing me off. Oh, Sergeant Peters, you're crazy. I don't need to worry about all that. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to be a cop. And yeah, fucking come to find out that shit doesn't work out the way you think it's going to work out. Get yourself some skills, particularly because us as infantry guys, we don't have anything really that translates to the civilian world that looks good on paper. I think that we all have high leverage skills that translate well into any career field when we get out, just in leadership alone. And I'll maintain that till the day I die. An infantryman is one of the best leaders on the planet. But that doesn't, just infantry in general doesn't translate well on a resume. Like it just doesn't. And that's even affected the advice that I give to people today. They ask me, do you think that my son or daughter or insert person here, would you recommend that they join the military? And it really has influenced my decision. It's now go to college first, do an ROTC program, get your degree, because you're going to make a hell of a lot more money as an officer over the course of your career. At least for the Army, you're going to get better assignments. I was stuck in two places my entire career, and really you can look at it as like 4 or 5, because I went to Fort Stewart, stayed there for 9 years. The rest of my career was at Fort Lewis. The only other places I went, Iraq, Afghanistan, Africa, wherever the deployments were taking us. But that's just it. Like, man, it's so many parallels here. It's so great.
Yeah, um, it's tough because the money thing. Yes, of course, being an officer, I started making a lot more money, but um, you know, it sucks because there were a lot of bad officers, and it pains me because I would see it, and it's like, dude, I mean, look, it's already hard enough as an officer because you kind of start out. Most enlisted, including myself when I was enlisted, are going to have kind of this negative connotation or negative view of you, right? Until you prove them wrong, right? Which is the way it should be. I mean, I'm not going to say. I always try to expect the best from people. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you should always look at somebody like they're a piece of shit or whatever. I'm not going to. But let's face it. There's a lot of bad, and it goes for E7s. It goes for E8s. Hell, E9s. I've seen some of the worst. But I was going to prove myself and prove that, hey, I'm not just here to boss you around or to rank has its privileges bullshit. I don't believe in that. I think obviously the more rank you have, the more responsibility you have. Like you need to be leading by example. So that was kind of my thing. Yeah, okay, the money was, I don't want to say it was nice compared to what we have to do, but but it was a lot better, obviously, than the enlisted guy or girl making 35,000, working their ass off.
Yeah, I remember I came in 03, and I didn't live off post or anything, so no BH, no BAS. My paychecks as a private were less than $800 for the month. Right. Like, so we're not making stupid money. And then you look at like a lieutenant's pay scale just because they have a 4-year degree. And I'm very adamant that there's no difference between a private and a lieutenant. The only difference is you went to college. You proved that you could get a 4-year degree. And I chose not to do that. And their pay was almost triple what I was getting. To do what? The same shit I'm doing, essentially. I'm doing more of it.
Yeah. No, it's true.
Do you in the Navy, we're talking about leadership, and a lot of this parallels like my career. I saw really bad officers, I saw really bad senior enlisted guys, I saw really great ones. To me, the best officers always, always, always were the ones who were enlisted and never forgot where they came from. Is it the same in the Navy?
Yeah, I truly believe that. I'll never. If I had to do it over, I wouldn't change it. I'm so thankful for those 8 years I had when I was enlisted. And the ones, yes, the ones that don't forget where they came from, I truly believe are the best. But you also get those ones that were enlisted and they're some of the worst because they forgot where they came from. And it's really sad to see because I'm like, this guy's a prick. And he was enlisted. It's like, what the hell, man? And that's the other thing is an officer, I could tell the other officer he's a prick. And that's, I enjoyed that
That's the
too.
end of it, right?
Yeah. But I mean,
um,
yeah, I think so. Absolutely.
That's awesome, brother. So let's. You said you thought you might go to 30. So what led to the decision to ultimately retire at 22 and move on in life?
You know, so it was during that 11-month deployment, and it's, I don't want to say it wasn't the deployment. It wasn't right, because I was coming to the realization. It's weird, man. It My brother-in-law got out at 20, and he said, like, when you know, you'll know. Because I was asking him, like, how do you know? How did you know you wanted to retire? He's like, when you know, you know. And I remember sitting at my desk one day on the ship, and I was like, damn, do I want to do this anymore? Um, and I think what it came down to me, there was a few different things. Okay, I had done everything I needed to do to make '05. So I was on a good path. Um, and I think I was going to be up my board. I want to say in, like, at that point, like, it was within 2 years. Um, but I was like, okay, I make '05, and then when you get to '05, you have very little say in where you go. I mean, because you start, obviously, the higher you go up, the less of you there are, just like E7, E8, E9. And they're going to tell me where to go. And I was like, okay, that means potentially being a geo bachelor, right? Where my family's going to stay and I'm going to go somewhere else. Um, and then, that was the main thing. I'm like, I'm not doing that. And
Just
I
the
don't.
thought of time away from your family. Yeah, I hear that a lot. I've had two other O5 Navy commanders on this show, and they said kind of the same thing. And I hear that kind of a lot. And I guess I'm just blessed to have who I didn't serve with a lot of them, but just having conversations with them and their philosophies throughout their careers, it's like, man, you would have been a really cool leader to work for. And it seems like the good ones, like what your brother-in-law was saying, was like, you just know when it's time. You just
Yeah.
know when it's time. And it's usually, like you said, reasons like being a geo bachelor or not having control over your career anymore and having to go. Really, I this is the outside looking in. I didn't make it any further than E6P, but they won't promote you when you're in a med board process. So technically I achieved my goal, but I didn't, whatever. Um, Particularly from an enlisted guy looking at officers, it's like it's a very political game at the O5 and above level. And I've actually asked that of some O5s on here, and they don't want to admit it. And I don't know what that is because we can see it plain as day. I saw it. I don't think I'm wrong on that. And there's a lot of other enlisted dudes that think the same way I do. I think that that perpetuates the shitty leadership at the top, right? Is that what you saw as an officer? Like I get a chance to like dive into this with somebody who's willing to talk about the ugly side of the officer world. So I'm going to take every advantage of that I can.
Yeah. No, that was the thing. Like, I made a, I don't say I made a promise or anything, but I decided that I was going to do, okay. So in the Navy as an officer, you have those, and I'm sure it's the same way in the Army, you have those tours that are like really good. Like, you get these tours, you're going to promote, right? And you do well. And then you have the okay ones and you have the shitty ones. I always chose a tour that wasn't going to completely ruin my career, but it was going to be good for my family, right? That was kind of the balance I struck. And I was like, you know what? My goal is wherever I go, I'm going to perform. And that's it. That's all I can do. I was blessed, man. Everywhere I went, some people were like, senior officer, you chose to go there? And I was like, yeah. And I had my reasons. I could lay it out. And damn, it worked out because I performed and I met some good people, man. I met some couple really good senior officers that uh, changed my view, helped change my view. But yeah, it's
When I think
political.
that's a good example of what happens when you follow your true inner beliefs and core values and self. Like, what do I actually want? And I think this is even a better example of, while there's not a lot of control that you have over your own autonomy in the military, there are ways that you can control your autonomy in the military. And you just gave one, right? Like, people are asking you, why as a senior officer are you going to this place? Like, and you had your reasons and you were not budging from those, and then you went and did it, and the universe rewards you, or your God rewards you for doing that. You know what I mean? And I think that's like that's the message here, right? Like that's what I'm preaching every single day is like you need to get out of that military mindset and figure out who you are as a person and what resonates and really makes you feel good on the inside, and then watch what happens to your life afterwards. Everything starts to fall into place. I think that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
Knowing that, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say the whole politics thing, right? And I try to stay away from it. You know, I hated it because you you see it everywhere. You got these people where you're like, how the hell did they make it to where they're at? But then you see what they're doing, and I'm just like, I'm just not willing to do that, right? But they're okay. But I also heard something, a great quote from some, I can't remember where it came from. I was reading it somewhere, but you know, the game's there. You're either going to play it well or you're going to play it bad, right? The game's there. So what I decided is I'm going to stop looking at networking as a negative thing. Okay, I used to look at it as you're kissing ass. It isn't though, right? You find those people that you respect and that are doing well, and you go to them and you have conversations. You get mentored. It doesn't have to be a bad thing, and you can decide. And this is where I decided, right? I just decided that it was time for me. Like I just didn't want to. I'm not going to sit here and say the politics are what kept me from staying in. No, but I knew it was going to get worse. And sure, I would deal with it. I mean, if I decided to stay in, but more importantly, it was kind of time for me. I just felt like it was time. I wanted to do something else, and I just didn't. I wasn't willing to risk anymore being away like that.
Hell yeah. So making the decision at 22 years, talk about, you were an advocate for taking care of sailors and helping them prepare for their transitions as best you could. I think with the knowledge that you might have had at the time. So it's now time for you to transition. How did that go for you? And I'm imagining that it probably didn't go at all like you thought it was going to go. Because it never, I've only talked to like, I mean, I really haven't talked to anybody who will say that the transition was easy. It just comes in different forms for different people. And like, that is my whole message is like, you don't have to suffer through your transition because I've already done that for you. And I'm telling you how, what you can do, give you tools to equip yourself to really figure out how to cope with the loss of identity and the loss of purpose and how to move past that and direct that into something else. You know what I mean? So what's going through your mind? 0 day is here. You're getting stamped out. You've got your DD 214. What's that look like for Mark Toner?
Well, first of all, how I did it is completely, and I'm sure a lot of people say this, but it's against everything they tell you how to do it, right?
Of
So,
course it is.
yeah, right. I literally decided to retire a little more than a year out. Um, yeah, from when I was going to retire. I also decided to retire from a ship tour. Ship tour. I mean, you don't have time for shit except the mission. So that was that was okay. But I'll tell you what, man. It like, oh man, it was a lot of work, but it went smooth. Like that's the thing, right? You follow your path, whatever whoever's telling you or whatever you feel, and it seems to work out. It's when you go against what you know you should do. So, for example, I decided, I was going to do it. I started looking at, okay, what do I need to do? And then just, along the way, like TAPS class, right? They tell you to go to TAPS so they can prepare you. I did when I was enlisted and I was going to get out, but that was a long time ago. I sat down with a master chief in E9 and he's like, okay, sir, here's a quick rundown. Like, you're good. I'll sign this off for you. Didn't go to TAPS. I was like, thanks, master chief. Oh, I'm good. Um, I did everything like you're not supposed to do. But what I did do is I worked my ass off, right? I dug in. I started networking. I started taking action and doing what I needed to do. Um, so for me, it was pretty smooth. And then, you know, I just, it was weird, man. It's like, it seems so far away. And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm saluting on the brow the last day walking off the ship. and driving from Washington down to Texas to be with my family. And it's, you know, it's, oh gosh, everybody talks about, oh, start networking 3 years out. Start, you know, okay, absolutely. If I had to give you the perfect plan, sure. However, my whole message is like, you can do it anyway. You can be successful, but you have to own it and you have to put in the work. Nobody's going to do it for you. Um, people are going to help you. There's some great people out there that I leaned on. Um, but you got to do it, man. You
Yeah,
know?
dude. I love that you're talking about networking and you dug in and you did that work. And you had told me offline you didn't even know the first thing about networking. And it's funny because I definitely I relate to you know networking is so important, and I think that life is just one big game of networking because your network really is your net worth. It's how I've gotten where I've gotten with this show. It's how I've gone from 93 followers on LinkedIn to 2,700 almost, in 7 8 months. For I think that's like a 2,700% increase or whatever, all because I took a chance on myself, put myself out there, and started meeting people. And then I found out I'm really good at it. I'm really good at it. I found out that I'm a connector and that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so oftentimes people ask me, like, how do you network? And I don't really have a good answer because I just guess I'm just naturally gifted at it. And I think my advice to get started networking is find somebody that's putting out, like, well, we use LinkedIn for example. Find somebody who's posting about some shit that resonates with you. Send them a DM and say, hey, you're cool, I'm cool, want to chat. It's really that simple. Do you find it to be that simple, or was it hard at first for you, in the sense that, like, maybe you just didn't know how to do it or whatever? Like, what was your approach to networking?
So I think it really is that simple, right? And I pretty much I did some reading and I pretty much knew that. But it's taking that first step, right? It's all of those like voices telling you, oh, they're going to think you're stupid, they're not going to pay attention to you. Um, really, like you said, the only thing to do for networking is literally reach out to people, and don't do it like, don't try to. I'm not talking like reach out and sell something. I'm talking about just being genuine. Like I would reach out and just say, hey, I see what you're doing. I'm interested in doing that. Can I get 30 minutes of your time just to discuss your path? Things I can take. I think they call them, informational interviews, but not even that formal. I'm talking just a conversation or leave comments on their posts. And I mean, it's really that simple. I just think it's getting over yourself
It
and
is.
being,
Yeah, it's
just
getting out of your own way, and
yeah.
that's just it. We stand in our own ways, and people don't. I didn't really understand until like the last year what it means to be in your own way, but it's exactly that. It's like it's all those thoughts like this person's going to think I'm an idiot. I'm not going to be able to hold a conversation with this person because they were an O6 and I was just an E6, and I don't have what it takes to talk to this person because they're smarter than me, and I don't even know, like, why would they take their time to talk to me because they're busy. And really, um, I don't know how much I've actually talked about this, but my outreach on LinkedIn was anybody who connected with me in the early days, anybody who engaged with any of my posts, they got a like 30-second to a minute Loom video from me in their DMs. It was like me, hey, I'm Adam. I wanted to say thank you for the connection. I'm super grateful for the connection, and I'd love to get on a call with you and learn more about you and what you're doing and how that might inform where I'm going. And you'd be surprised how many people latch onto that. And I could probably go back through thousands of DMs at this point and find some of those early ones where the message I was getting back is like, dude, what a cool way to introduce yourself and reach out to people and network with people, because I don't see that anymore. I'm constantly getting pitched cold pitches in the DMs, and I'm getting that now, right? Like, and I'm very like, well, I interact with, like, I don't have a VA that does anything for me on my social media. It's all me. The tab's open all day, which is probably a distraction to getting actual work done. But as soon as I get a notification, I go engage with that person, or a DM, I try to engage with that person. I can tell you, I'm sitting here right now. I see the tab. I've got like 5 messages that I know I'm going to have to go answer as soon as we're done here. But it's served me so well because I've met you, I've met all the guests I have on here. It's informed the direction of my business, and so networking, right? Like that's where it starts. And it's so I believe in that so much that when the community launches on August 1st, one of the very first courses in there is networking.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think yes. If it's one thing I had to preach to, if I would preach one thing to people retiring, it's networking, right? Because I wouldn't have my job at USA right now without a network. I literally started talking to a retired Marine that worked at USAA, who put me in contact with somebody that is in my department right now. And they gave me a recommendation based off of a conversation I had with them. I mean, you don't get into places, you get into places because people recommend you. I mean, it's hard if they don't. Networking is everything, man. But the thing is like the more you do it, the more benefit. Like you see, it's crazy. Like you just said, I'm sitting here with you on this podcast. In a million years, I never thought ever that, first of all, that I would be on a podcast. But second of all, I mean, we'd be talking about this stuff. And it's like, this is surreal. Like I don't take anything for granted. I still pinch myself. Like I try to stay humble in that way. And that's, but the thing is though, is you can make it happen, right?
You can, yeah.
You have to put
It's
yourself out there, but you can make it happen.
and that's it. That's all it takes is to just send that first DM to somebody, and understanding that they may not answer, and that's okay, because then you have to adopt a little bit of the sales mentality, right? 100 no's before you get a yes. I promise you, on LinkedIn, if you start reaching out to people who resonate with you, it will not be 100 no's before you get a yes. I'm fairly certain you can get a couple of yeses before you even send 10 DMs. I know that happened for me, and I'm just as guilty of having that mindset as everybody else when I first started. Like, this person's going to think I'm a fucking moron. I don't have any value to give this person, so why would they even talk to me? And it's like, no, every interaction I've had on LinkedIn has always been a positive one. And the other person has always come back and said, thank you, I learned something from you. And dude, when that feature gets unlocked for you, oh my god, like what that does for you. So I want to keep talking about your transition, because you did prepare, and you said the transition wasn't that bad for you. I know that you had done the shadow work or whatever to really face the trauma of the sexual abuse while you were on that last deployment. And then, did you have any issues with that in your transition at all? Did it come back up for you, or had you really done the work and put it behind you? I guess
I
behind you is not really the right word, but really
Yeah, yeah,
learned how you know what I'm saying.
yeah, yeah. No, I completely understand what you're saying. So it kind of, again, I did a lot of this work, and then I kind of like went away from it again. But it okay, and I talk about, I had a post about this where you have these really high highs and you have these really low lows, and it's kind of trying to find that middle ground,
The
right? To
sine
kind of,
wave. The
yes,
sine wave, man.
exactly,
Yeah, I commented
exactly.
on it.
Yeah, yeah. And so my highs and lows were a lot less at that point. Because again, the more you address it, however, I kind of still went away from it, but I was so caught up in, dude, I was putting in hours like learning how to interview properly, learning how to sell myself, just networking. Like that was my focus. So I don't want to say I didn't have time to think about all that stuff, but it wasn't at the top of my mind. Um, and I
Maybe
was,
it's a case of you had already done enough work where you're aware of that, and you're not going to let it impede with where you're trying to go at this point. Because I think that's a lot of what dealing with trauma is recognizing how the trauma affects you, recognizing what triggers your response to that trauma in what situation, but then being self-aware enough to not let it creep in, and okay, this has been an issue today. It didn't interfere with the things I needed to get done, but I need to sit with this when I get home, right? Or
yeah,
when the day
yeah.
is over.
And that's, you know what, and that's a good way of putting it. And it's, I can kind of say it like this: it's like different levels of healing, right? Like you kind of, you get to, surface level where it comes back to you. You realize, okay, oh my gosh, this happened to me. And then you dig in a little further, you get to the next level. That, and it's perfect. Yeah, that's a very good way of saying it. And I got to a level where I had dug in enough, like you said, where it wasn't affecting me every day. I understood the triggers or my thoughts. I was starting to become more self aware. That was one thing I really worked on deployment. Um, so, excuse me, I was at that point, and then this right now, what I'm doing now is like the final stage. Like this is the ultimate for me, where I don't, it doesn't affect me anymore as far as negative. Like I embrace it. It is who I am, and I'm trying to help people. That's my mission. So I'm kind of at that. I don't want to say it again. It's never done, but I'm at that like top level now where
Well,
like,
and that's awesome that you're talking about the levels of healing because it's so true, right? Like you're at the top level where you continue to heal by helping others heal, right? Like that is I don't know how many conversations you've had with people who've reached out and you've given them some coaching or whatever it is that you're working at building, but I can imagine, like for me, I'm working with a few veterans right now, and when I give them a tool and they go practice it, I got a message from a guy yesterday and he was like, I've had a shit week, but I hung on to the things that you said and it could have been so much worse of a week. Thank you for giving me these tools. I love you and I appreciate you, brother. Like to me, yeah, like that's how I continue my healing, right? Like sharing all the things that I learned to help others get better. And oh, by the way, it took plant medicine to help me, and it's not taking plant medicine, it's just me giving the integration tools that I've learned from my plant medicine journey to other people and watching their lives change before me. And that's what I set out to do with this whole thing, and that is what is currently helping me in my healing journey.
yeah, no, absolutely. To me, that is the ultimate. When somebody lets you know like what you did or what you said, those 10 minutes you just took, turn my week around or whatever. I mean, like to me, that's what it's all about. And you know, I don't. Like I told you earlier, I think with the sexual abuse, I think it's a lot more difficult because it's such a, people aren't just coming out and talking about it. And I think obviously the more I do this, hopefully I can break that, and I have more people that are reaching out or at least telling their story or writing about it. Right? It doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you get it out. It doesn't matter. And I think, you know, damn, I don't want to say, okay, I'm going to be careful with my words because we have this tendency to say I wasted so many years of my life and that's not true. Okay. Nothing's wasted. It's all learning. It's all an experience. Um,
We were
but
put
damn,
here to learn lessons, and we had to
yeah,
walk
but
through that path to learn
damn,
those lessons. It sucks.
it took me
Yeah,
a long
but
time, man.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
I'm a
brother.
stubborn dude though. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And, and oh, God bless my wife, man. Um, I'm such a stubborn guy. Like, it's funny because I would tell somebody now, like I want to get into the coaching and stuff. And I would tell somebody now, like, find a good therapist, talk to somebody. I didn't do that. I'm like, so I did right after it happened to me. But I talked about like at the time, my girlfriend at the time, we were having a bunch of issues, of course. I was fucking 18. Um, but I didn't focus on myself, right? So then, you know, we tried different every now and then. Oh, let's go talk to somebody, and it was like, no, I know I can do this. I'm good, and you know, I'm glad I kind of went. I'm not glad I am, but I am glad I went through it because now I can let other people know, like, hey, try it, and it may or may not work out for you. I'm not saying everybody needs to go to a therapist but don't rule it out. Don't have a negative attitude about it. You don't know what's going to work for you until you try it.
Yeah.
It's
You talk about your wife a lot. How long have you guys been together?
21 years, almost 22 in January.
So,
So,
so 22 years in January. That amazing. Congratulations, particularly because a 22-year career in the military, that is very atypical for somebody to be married to the same woman or man, whatever that looks like for you, for that long. Just given the nature of deployments, and the military always puts the military first, not the family first, obviously. So I'm curious, did you hide the sexual abuse from your wife, or was you upfront with her from the beginning, and she has been behind you 100% the whole time? Like, what did that look like? And if you did hide it from her when you did come out with it to her, what did that look like as well?
so I wouldn't say I didn't hide it. I don't recall at what point, I talked about it for the first time, but it was fairly early. Didn't hide it. But the thing is, it really, of course, she was absolutely behind me. She was telling me to do everything that I would tell people to do now, right? But the thing is it's hard because she's right there. I mean, she's so it put her in a situation to where she was my wife, but she was also trying to be not trying to be, but she was kind of like a life coach too. So it was like it really strained things. I would talk about it every now and then, but then she would ask questions, which of course is natural, and I would get angry and I'd stop talking. I'd be like, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Well, obviously because of where I was, right? I wasn't ready to deal with it. Um, it was tough. Okay, our marriage has been it's been tough, but you know I haven't been the easiest person to get along with, or I'm a dude, I'm a dumbass. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
and
Yep.
I'm starting to now realize like she knows way more than I do, and I should probably listen to her most of the time. But um, yeah, it was tough because I was so resistant to doing anything. Right, I was. It was almost like she'd be like, "Do you want to be here? Do you want to?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, of course I do," and I really do. But I wasn't demonstrating that. I wasn't showing that, and it's really hard to understand for her to understand because it's like everything that happened to me or the walls I had built up, just the scars, whatever you want to call it, it kind of it puts you in a situation to where your actions don't support what you're saying, which if you're human, it's like you're full of shit because you're doing something completely opposite of what you're saying. But I did. I just didn't know how to. I felt so stuck, man. So lost, so hopeless. Um, I did not think I could change. I really didn't. I thought like, Mark, you came from here. First of all, how the hell did you become an officer? How the hell did you do this? Like, just be happy with where you're at. Like, try to make the best of it. Don't be a douche. Don't like, and that's kind of how I looked at it, man, for a long, long time.
Man, that sucks, dude. Well, I'm glad that you figured it out, and I'm glad that you're sharing your story. You're not alone in sharing these stories. I actually get to have a woman on this podcast who runs a military sexual trauma podcast, and I'm excited to talk to her about that, and get her out there and get her introduced to a bigger audience and whatnot. And so, you know people are paying attention with your story, brother, and I want you to know that you are making a difference. And I want to move into what you're doing now. How did you choose this career path, and then kind of the inspiration to create the coaching business, or whatever that's going to look like for you. And maybe we can war game, or whatever, and come up with ideas for what your business may look. I don't know where that's going to go, because you do have the entrepreneurial spirit, and that you want to serve something bigger than yourself, and you want to help others avoid falling into that same sexual abuse trap that you fell into, where it's my fault and it defines me and I'm hopeless and I'm just going to be this way forever. And that doesn't have to be true. It doesn't have to be true for anybody with any trauma that they're going through. But I think particularly with a story as powerful as yours, we can demonstrate that to the masses here.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So again, a few years ago, I knew deep down, like I wanted to help people that have been through, and it doesn't have to be sexual abuse. It could be anything, any kind of trauma. But that's obviously where my experience lies. However, I didn't know what it was, so I started again thinking more, and I knew what I had to do. Right, I had to put my story out there. So now I'm thinking, okay, I always think what would have helped me back then, and it's so hard because I was so resistant to anything. And I know for a fact a mentor that had been through it, that had come out the other side, that has had success that in their mind, right? I'm not just talking financial success or anything. I'm talking like really dealt with it. And I it wasn't there. So that's kind of my inspiration now is, and it's, I almost feel guilty because at some point, like I'm going to have to monetize, right? Because we all have to make money. Now I have a great job at USA and I don't know what the future looks like yet. Um, I enjoy what I do there, but this is like my passion. This is what I want to do. I will continue to help people as much as I can, but at some point, like I said, I would love to get more into a one-on-one type coaching where I can really have an impact on somebody and hold them accountable, right? That's the main thing. Okay. I'm thinking, well, how the hell can you coach anybody? What are you going to do? What are you going to tell them to like stay positive, stay positive? No, I'm trying to, that's where the hard stuff lies because there's a lot of bullshit out there. I want to really develop things and have an impact on people that it's really going to help them, especially if they're going to pay me, like they better get some value. Otherwise, I can't take the money from them. So I'm at that point now where I do have some things in the works on how I can help people, whether it's, documents I create or, but I think the true value comes with the one-on-one coaching. And my wife always said, you should get a life coach. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Yeah, right. Somebody's going to, but I would have benefited from that. So the future kind of looks like that. And then I would love to have like a group setting type thing where, we have this, where we can discuss every so often, you have people that buy into a 6 month program. And I mean, damn, you get people in the same room that can, like me and you, just talk about like their experiences. And I mean, there's all kinds of things I got in my head right now, but right now I'm just focusing on providing value consistently on like LinkedIn and stuff and just trying to
Well,
build my
and I
brand.
love that you're talking about what you needed was a mentor or a coach, right? And I actually just had this conversation. It's part of working through my own shit last night with Jesse Marseille. I'm just going to shout him out right now. He runs Storytelling at Scale, a phenomenal phenomenal podcast that he's got going on over there, and awesome guy to talk to. But I called him last night because I was going through the shit. We had a really deep conversation. We were talking about the coaching and what therapy and the difference between therapy and coaching is. And basically the conclusion we came to is like therapy, you go there to put your finger on the trauma that is ailing you or whatever, right? To get to the root cause of all of your problems. And I think that's about all therapy is going to do for you. It's the coaching and the mentorship with somebody, for me personally, with somebody who has walked a mile in my shoes or a very similar journey. I think it's probably true for you. And the job of a coach or a mentor, and this is coming from somebody who is, I'm like 2 weeks away from getting my Being True to You certification. I have to finish the last two assignments, and then I'll be a psychedelic integration and addiction recovery coach certified by Being True to You. And what I've learned through that course is coaching or mentorship is really, it's about sitting down with someone, meeting them where they're at and listening to them, and just listening, just being that person who can meet them where they're at, listen to what they're going through, and then advise or ask them permission to advise and give them some tools or you know being true to you. And I'll be very candid with this, they don't teach the way that I coach, which is I'm a very direct kind of guy. I don't, I've never been one to beat around the bush. It doesn't serve me, it doesn't serve you. But that's particularly why I want to exclusively work psychedelic integration and addiction recovery with veterans, because I know that kind of coaching style is exactly what 90% of them need. I'm not saying it's for everybody, but you know, I know that I can meet them where they're at, and I can hear them, and I can, draw on my own experiences because they're already coming to me asking me those questions. So is that what you're saying that you want to be for others in your coaching business?
Yeah, so I had a lot of thought about this too. Just like you talked about the conversation you had last night. Like, okay, a coach, what? I mean, we have therapists and stuff, but I thought about it obviously from my perspective too, my past. And yeah, a therapist is going to be great, right? Because they're going to take you to that root. They're going to help you open up, discuss. But the problem is, like I mentioned earlier on this podcast, is the follow through, the consistency, the accountability, having somebody that understands what you're going through. So that's my goal. My goal is to be able to work with somebody, help them develop goals, help them address areas that they want to address, and, like you, I'm pretty direct. That doesn't mean we don't have to be a dick about it, but it's like, I'm here, you're paying me, right? If you're paying me, I'm going to show up and I'm going to hold you accountable. And if you're not accountable, I'm going to ask you why. And then we're going to find a way to get back on track. Like, I don't take it lightly. If somebody's going to pay me money for my services, then I'm going to deliver. And that's important to me. So if somebody looks at that in a negative way, then obviously I shouldn't be working with them. And I'm sure you feel the same way. Like, you're not going to appeal to everybody, but
Well,
that's the beauty.
for,
you
for
know.
me, the monetary, and I have not charged a single person for any of the hours and hours of coaching that I've given, or advice, or mentorship, or whatever, however you, and those of you listening know who you are that are working with me. I don't, however you look at it, that's fine. I really did just want to be a guy that I didn't have when I was getting out of the Army and trying to figure the whole transition out. So that's my whole shtick, and I try to live up to that. But I'm not I'm not direct in an angry way. I'm just like, and the money is really to protect my time, and it's proven fact that people get more out of something when they're invested into it, right? So if money has to be the barrier, then good. I get to do something that I want to do. I get to make a little bit of money on it. And you also get to invest in yourself and make yourself better. And so that kind of leads us into what I want to talk about next, and really paint the picture of deciding to tell your story and tell someone when you wrote that letter to your mom, and what that actually did for you by sharing your story, all the good things that came out of that, because it doesn't have to be a negative. I mean, it's a very negative thing that happened to you, and I don't wish that on anybody, but also because you're choosing to share your story and choosing to not compartmentalize and bottle this up anymore, you no longer want to kill yourself. You're no longer having trouble in your marriage, in at least that aspect of whatever, marriage troubles that brings. I'm sure it's great for your networking and building relationships that way. And so paint that picture as if you were talking to yourself, like by Mark Toner sharing his story, this is what happened for me.
So the biggest, okay, so I I want to say before I told my mom, I think I had brought it up to two friends before that. Just kind of, I didn't tell them the whole story or anything, but
Just nonchalantly testing the
yeah.
waters.
And what I found, so what I found each time you tell your story is like this. I can't even explain it, man. It's like this weight is lifted. Like, you feel like you can breathe, like, oh my gosh, like, because you're not meant to hold that stuff in. I mean, it's just, your soul you can't do it. It's toxic. So every time I shared it, it was like, oh my gosh, I felt so good.
You just breathe a little deeper each time.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's where that wave is, right? So I would say something, there we go, and it would spike way up, right? And then I would go, then reality kicks in, right? And it's that, I talk about that discomfort, that uncomfortable feeling, that weird, like, dude, I shouldn't be doing this. Like, this is wrong. Let me run back over here. That would kick in. So then I would,
That's the darkness trying to take back
yes,
over.
and I would shut down, right? So then I would dip down, go down again. And time would go by and, I'd say something else. And that's why I said the more I could talk about it or write about it, however you decide to do it, the more stable it becomes. And there's less of those highs. So now when I talk about it, it's not like I feel great. No, I feel good all the time now. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Doesn't mean I have great days all the time, but it's not related to that. You know what I'm saying? Like
It's just not controlling you anymore. It doesn't have this, like, I don't know, like when you deal with unresolved trauma, and this applies to anybody, no matter what your trauma is, when you hang on to that, it first of all destroys the natural balance that we're supposed to be in. I look at that between, light and dark. That's how I discovered like what balance was. So holding in trauma, not talking about it, is you're consuming yourself with this darkness. And then when you're out of balance, you feel heavy. Because when I let go of all that stuff through the ayahuasca journey, I felt 1,000,000 pounds lighter, and I could breathe deeper than I'd ever breathed in my life. And it was the most amazing thing. And so it's essentially like bottling that up, like you said, it's bad for your soul. It's strangling what makes you you.
yeah, no, it truly is. And gosh, if it's one thing I wish for everybody is to be able to break free from that, right? To be able to, like I said, it doesn't mean you got to share your story like I am. That's not everybody's way of dealing with it. But I promise you, if you could just write about it, if you could just record yourself talking about it, I mean, the more you can do just to address it, the more you're going to feel, like you just said, you're going to be able to breathe. You're going to feel less heavy. Um, you're going to actually feel like some real joy. You know what I'm saying? Like, not that stuff you get like from buying something, or just that inner peace, I
It's
guess.
yeah, it's one of those things where you're almost like I don't even know why I'm happy right now, but I'm
Right.
happy. Yeah, it
And I never
just
thought I would experience it. I mean, seriously, it's almost like you're full of shit. What? That doesn't exist. But no, it
yeah.
does.
So now you're obviously we've talked about this a lot. Your mission is to help other sexual abuse victims face those demons and work through that. So other than the coaching, like what does that look like to you, and how are you approaching that? Have you had the pleasure of working with anybody and making change in their life yet? And if so, do you mind sharing that with us?
No, I haven't. I haven't worked with anybody like one on one or anything. I've had a few people reach out to me and share their story, which was really, I don't say really cool, but like we talked about, it's like the greatest thing because I know that's like the first big step for them. Like, I know that's going to help because they're at least acknowledging it and addressing it. And it's sad, it's, of course it's sad. I've had a few of that. But what I want to, obviously, like, with it being a tough subject, I want to stay consistent with putting my message out there, building my brand, um, trying to, I want to prove to people like I'm trying to help people. And I think for me, what it looks like I told you, is just starting that like one on one, trying to help people change their lives. But I would love to like do, speaking engagements in the future and try to get to, it sucks because in the military too, for example, you have sexual assault training and stuff, right? Which the military is very good at doing. Don't get me
They
wrong.
fucking overdo it, man. God, it's like
Yes,
once every 6 weeks.
yeah,
It's sharp,
they, they
fucking
do.
safety stand down day once a month, and we're
Yes.
doing sharp training for 8 fucking hours. And I'm not like it's important. I get it, but fuck me, dude. It's so bad. It's just death by PowerPoint all day long. And then by the time you get to 12 and a half, 13 years of your career, you're like, this PowerPoint has not changed in 12 fucking years. Like I know this thing by heart right now.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
But and what's the, and the question I have, what's the impact of that, right? Now, I know it's hard to measure, okay? Don't get me wrong. However, is that really the best way? Like, I'm sitting in the crowd during this training, and I'm a sexual abuse survivor, and the person giving the training isn't. And look, there's some great people out there doing some great things. But as a former survivor, I just know, like, even when I talk to a therapist and they haven't been through it, it's like, okay, you can help me pull out the information. And this is where we talk about the difference between the mentor and the therapist is, but I've been through it. Like I've been through the dark. I'm now in the light. Like I can empathize with you. I get it. And I think for me, it's like if I could share my story with a group of people wherever it's at, and just like there's people sitting in the crowd right now. There's men sitting in this crowd right now that have been sexually abused, and they may never say anything. Just like let that sink in. Like it's real. Like that was me. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I'm not trying to knock the military and what they're doing. I get it. And this isn't just the military. This is like everywhere. But and I don't have all the answers to that. It's a tough subject. And you got to cover your ass, right? I mean, that's the main
You know what
thing.
I think you should be doing? I think you should be doing what I'm doing. I think you should have a podcast. I think you should get into public speaking, and I think you should write a book. I think that by you doing something in a format just like this, and it may be rough to get guests who are willing to put their stories out there, but I think if you come at it strong with a nice, 20-30 minute telling your story premiere video on YouTube or whatever podcast channel you want to put it out on, and let that marinate with some people and start talking about it in your post, because you post way more than I do. I think you post like 3 times a day right now, don't you?
Well, yeah, 2 to 3.
Yeah. You start talking about that, and I think those DMs are going to increase. And I think like you already noticed, there's few that have reached out and told their story, and you felt good about that because that's the first step. So maybe even that could be where you draw your first guest from, because they were sharing their story with you, which means they're ready to take that step into healing. Maybe that's the catalyst, is you having a show in a format, however you choose to do that. But like maybe that is because I really believe the reason I've been able to get better and moving this thing forward is because of conversation like this. Just conversation, I think, is so underrated these days. And I think I don't know, I feel like I'm kind of positioning myself in this business in a really good spot right now, because I feel like society is so desperate for authentic, real conversation. Not the, and I watch tons of podcasts, man. I'm not saying that the bigger podcasts that are out there don't talk about meaningful things, but like, look at what the strategic veterans doing, and I want to have an impact on the suicide epidemic that plagues our country, or our veterans, our community. And nobody else is doing that, or very few are doing that in the format that I'm doing it. And I don't know, I know the military sexual trauma podcast, and I apologize to her. I don't remember what the actual name of her podcast is, and I don't record with her for several weeks, but she's the only one right now that I know of that's talking about what you're talking about, other than obviously and she's got a platform to do it. And maybe that is like something that you do. Have you entertained that?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually um, thought about doing that, and I was going to call it, like the Survivor to Thriver podcast. You know, I did just I have a newsletter now, so that was kind of the next step. So I try to put out a weekly newsletter. Um, but I absolutely consider that, and I wanted to, like, this definitely helps my thoughts on that. I do enjoy this. Like you said, I think conversation is so powerful. Um, I can see myself doing that in the future.
I think you'd
And
be good at it, brother.
no,
I
I
think that
appreciate it. That helps a lot. Because I've enjoyed this. This has been a great experience. And I'm with you. Like, I think, like you said, I don't think the big podcasts are bad. However, I just think just these are really impactful though, right? These one on one with, just, I don't say regular people, but the people that are actually going through stuff, like, or that have
well,
been through stuff.
and to that point, what I'm finding as my show continues to grow and I put more and more stuff out, I had this like misconception that like I guess, I was just putting this out for the veteran community, and that was really only the people that it was going to resonate with. And dude, I'll be damned, I have a lot of civilians who are religious listeners of this show, and they will text me or call me or send me a DM and be like, "Yo, I this episode with Scotty Schneider, I had to call my wife into the living room, and we were intrigued for the entire 2.5 hours. This is that you need to keep doing this. Just keep finding a way to put this out here." And I'm like, this is resonating with people who I think are desperate to find a way to give back to their veterans. They're of a generation, or however you want to look at it, right? Because we were just at war for 21 years. Like, people forget that, you know what I mean? And I participated in all of it, right? Right, from 2003 to 2015. So I was there for basically the beginning and the beginning of the end. And there's a generation of people out there who saw that and want to support, and they don't know how to support because they don't understand. And they're telling me that this is shedding light on things and really helping them understand the veteran community and the things that we go through, and that that we're regular people who just kind of lived a different life or whatever. And I think, to the point, I guess getting to the point is, like, if you were to do that, you'd be surprised how many people outside of what your message is will resonate with that. And I think it would spark some real change, maybe policy change and stuff like that, if if that's your vision for it.
Yeah, I'm like, so, we always talk about, okay, what's stopping you, right? Of course, you get in your own way, right? And I'm slowly kind of starting to, well, I don't say that. I've been kind of ignoring that inner voice for a while now, but you know, again, it goes back to, okay, what am I capable of? And it's like I'm starting to see, like I want to take this as far as I can with however many people it helps. If it continues to help people, I'm going to keep doing it. Um, and you're right. I think for me, it isn't just about that sexual abuse community. I absolutely believe that what I've gone through, I can help others that are dealing with almost anything. I don't want to say anything, but a lot of these principles apply to any. And like you said it. I love what you said, that I'm not comparing my trauma to anybody's. Everybody's trauma, because it affects you, whatever you went through. And I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter, right? If it has an impact on your life, then it's an absolute, like, it sucks. It's just as bad. I mean, I'm not here to compare or say, God, look what I went through. No, I mean, so it's like, I just I want to be genuine. I truly want to help people. That's the bottom line. Um, I would love to get to that level you're talking about. But damn, I mean, policy. Hell, I thought when I became an officer, I would be able to have more change. Oh my God. Forget it, dude. I'm not saying it can't happen. Okay. I'm just saying, like, oh my gosh.
I mean, honestly, the reason I say that is because that's kind of my vision for the strategic veteran. Is I would like it to, 10, 15 years in the future, be a skill bridge program that is offered to, transitioning veterans interested in intra or entrepreneurship. And I'm really discovering the intra part is important. It originally started as entrepreneurship, but intrapreneurship, getting you closer to that revenue stream with resources that TAPS or ACAP or whatever the fuck it's called now, the shitty ass program that doesn't fucking work, that needs, I really have a vision to make this a program that can work. I can't guarantee that in 6 months everybody's going to have a successful business that replaces their Army income or their Navy income or whatever. What I can promise is I can give you all of the knowledge that I've learned painstakingly through YouTube gurus and fucking trial and error and failing a bunch of times, and I can give you actionable shit that can, in 6 months. I mean, we just talked about it. I've grown my following 2,700% in 6 months. That's significant. I'm curious. I know you just launched your newsletter. I need to go sign up for it. I'm a bad friend, but I'm curious. In the week that you've launched it, how many people do you have on your list?
I think I'm up to like 4 now.
I
4 or
mean,
5.
but that's just it, right? Like so in that there's a lesson in that, and in that you probably started a newsletter way later than you actually wanted to. I'm sure somebody's been telling you to start a newsletter for a long time. And then you probably dealt with the imposter syndrome and those fucking undisciplined thoughts of like, I'm gonna do this, it's gonna be a waste of time, nobody's gonna come and fucking read it. And I absolutely know how you felt when you got the first person on your newsletter, and then I know how you felt when you got the second person on your newsletter, and then I'm willing to bet that you probably woke up one day and then there's two more on the newsletter and you're like, oh, this shit fucking works. And I'll tell you, Mark, I was the same way. I put it off and put it off. I don't know what to write in a newsletter. I don't know what to write in a newsletter. Fuck, I sent 6,000 emails this week. I have 155 people on my newsletter now, right? Like, it's just like putting yourself out there, believing in yourself. It's really what it is, believing in yourself, putting away all the bullshit from others, and getting out of our own way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's, all of this, it's like a cycle. Like you sit here, you have these feelings like, oh, I can't do this. Then you start to do it and you're like, wow, I can do this. And wow, a couple people are signing up, but and then it helps you in the process, right? Because we're all always on our healing journey. I mean, it never stops. All this stuff, we could call it selfish. I don't call it selfish, but it sounds selfish. Like, oh, this helps me, but it does, right? But it helps me be better for others, right? It helps me be better for my family, for the people that are, I'm blessed to have reading my newsletter. But the last thing I want to do is put out garbage, right? And I guess that's the one thing too. I'm like, who the hell wants to read a newsletter? People get newsletters all the time. And I had to get over that because it's not up to me. If they want to sign up for it and read it, they'll sign up for it and read it. But I'm going to put my heart and soul into it. I'm going to provide as much value as I can whenever I do write. Right now it's weekly, and I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna give what I got, and if people resonate with it, great. And if they don't, then fine. We all have our own beliefs and decisions and whatever. Um, but
It's
like
it's a
you,
it's a field of dreams kind of thing, right? If you build it, they will come. And it's I know it sounds simple, and I know to those listening who haven't started yet, it really is that simple. If you build it, they will come. And it only requires a couple of things. To me, that looks like discipline, which is the foundation of everything for me. I actually wrote a piece the other night that I shared with my team. I don't know if I'll ever put it out or not, but discipline's the only thing that's always been there for me. Always. It's never abandoned me. And it's the only thing that seems to get better and easier in my life the more I practice it. But it looks like discipline and then consistency. You really only need three things: an idea, discipline, and consistency to continue putting out information, valuable information about the thing, the idea. And anybody can do it, and you can do it with a newsletter. It
yeah,
starts with a
yeah.
newsletter.
And I think a lot of veterans, the retired veterans, I think a lot of the issues stem from losing that discipline from the military, right? Because I kind of dealt with it for a minute or two, where I, when I was like, going through any kind of training or whatever, like you're up early, you're doing PT, you're doing this, and then it's like you get out and you don't have anybody pushing you anymore, forcing you, and that's where it's like you lose that. I agree with you. Like, I think the discipline, I think it's the biggest thing, because if you can just show up, I mean, just think about it on even on LinkedIn. If you just show up every day, most people are going to drop out. They're going to quit. Um, and if you don't quit on yourself, if you keep showing up for yourself every day and being disciplined, just like in the military, you're going to do okay. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, is just showing up.
Well, and the reason I talk about that from experience, and you're absolutely right. When I got out of the army, it was party time. I was like, no more fucking 6:30 PT, no more 5 o'clock fucking war room meetings. Like, I can get out of bed whenever I want. Before you know it, I'm 100 pounds overweight. My blood pressure's through the roof. I look like I'm fucking dying, and I really am killing myself slowly. And that's why I say discipline's always been there for me, because the minute I go back to my discipline in we're coming up on a year since my Peru trip, which really was the cheat code that unlocked all this for me. And I'm very honest about that. You don't need psychedelics to get through all this shit, but they definitely speed things up a little bit. But in 11 months, I've lost 100 pounds. I've started this business that will birth more businesses. I've met people who, I've got a lot of other things going on behind the scenes besides the podcast and the community, things that are going to set me up, and I'm going to be able to then bring into the community to teach other people how to do when I learn them, that, like all of that, because I went back to being a disciplined person.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the same here, man. Like there was and I'm not, it's not always like a conscious decision. You just kind of like you slip, right? I mean, we're human. And I did the same thing where I got out of doing my stuff, what I need to do, my physical, like I love physical exercise, man. That's where that's my therapy. And I would
No,
stop
you're
doing
a
it.
fucking madman
So
running in 103-degree heat
I
in
I
Texas.
it's stupid, right? But it's like I literally see the sun out and the temperature, and there's something in me that's like, let's go. Like, and it's, and I'm not saying you don't have to do that. And okay, and the thing too is like I always question, should I be posting that shit? Because it's not me trying to say and flex and say, oh yeah, look at me, look at me. What I'm trying to do is like, I want to back up what I'm saying. Like, I want to show that I'm not just all talk. Like, I'm pushing myself physically, mentally, emotionally. That doesn't mean I'm out there running every day. Okay. I don't do that. I have bad days too, where I decide not to work out because I feel lazy or I don't feel like it. It never, that's what I try to tell her. It doesn't go away. You don't just wake up one day and say, oh my gosh, like I'm going to kill it today every single day. It doesn't, no, it doesn't work that way. And you can listen to David Goggins, he'll tell you the same thing. Like every day he goes to run, he don't want to run.
Yeah. Well, and you just said it too, man. Like we do have bad days, but leaning on that discipline, doing that hard thing, whatever that looks like, whenever you do that, it matters. And to your point, like, should I be posting about this? Yes, absolutely. You know why? Because what's going to happen for you is what happened to me last week. I made one of my stupid morning walk videos, which everybody seems to like.
I'll say it ain't stupid. So, I mean,
I think they're stupid, but that's my
I know,
opinion of
I
my
think
own
mine are
shit,
too.
right?
Yeah.
Like we do that because we're in our own heads, but I talked about reframing, and I read Jack Carr's new book, Red Sky Morning. I spent all weekend last weekend fucking cover to cover that book. I'm a nerd and I love military thrillers and espionage. I whatever, it is what it is. But I read that thing cover to cover, and I had that voice in the back of my head telling me, like, you should be working, you should be doing this, particularly because I'm going to be traveling all month next month, for some live shows and stuff like that. Just a little bit of vacation sprinkled in there. And I know I've got, like, this monkey on my back with, I'm going to take some time to do me and things that I want to do. And this is going to suffer a little bit, but I've made my peace with that. And I posted about reframing it. And then one of the people that I work with went in there and commented on it and was like, hey, this is fucking amazing, because I want to see somebody talking about doing the thing that he's telling me to do, and being the example, not just telling me to do the thing and not doing the thing. And so if you keep putting that stuff out, that's absolutely going to happen for you as well, brother.
Yeah. That's the goal, right? And that was my goal in the military. Like, I, how the hell, I'm not going to tell you to do something that I'm not going to go do. So hell, I'm gonna be I'll fucking mop the deck. I don't care. Like, it sucks. I get it. I did it. I mean, I did it, and I'm doing it right now as an '03 or whatever, '04. It didn't matter. Like, um, and that's the whole thing, and it all ties back into that like authenticity. Like, there's so many people out there right now that are coaches, right? But they're not doing what they're telling you to do. Who the hell wants to listen to somebody like that? Or who wants to pay somebody, or they're lying about it, which is even worse. And then you find out like they're just scam artists or whatever. But that's the thing is, yeah, I do that because I'm trying to show you, like, I'm not just saying do stuff and I'm not doing it. Like, and it sucks. I don't enjoy. I get out there, I'm like, what the hell am I thinking? This is stupid.
Yeah, it's hot. It's way too
Dumbass.
hot for me. uh, I think something else with that too is like in the position that you and I are in, building our brands, preaching or shouting this shit from the mountaintops. Like I want everybody, at least from my perspective, to understand. Like I do talk about this stuff, and I am an avid practitioner of this stuff. I do mindfulness exercises. I do breath work. I do meditate. However, I don't do all of these things as regularly as you might think. And my biggest piece is mindfulness, and here lately it's been grounding. And I don't know what it is about grounding, but the universe has its hold on me. And you guys can think I'm fucking woo woo or crazy all you want, but I'm telling you, this shit fucking works. I'll be working in the middle of the day, and I don't wear socks or shoes around my house. And I'll just get up and randomly go pace my backyard in the grass in my bare feet for 15 or 20 minutes. And then I'll come back in and I'll be even more productive than I was when I went out there. And I don't know what it is that made me go out there. So that's been like lately what it's been. But if I'm feeling like I'm getting out of control, which I didn't do yesterday, and I even told you before we started recording, like I had a shit day yesterday. The undisciplined thoughts won and I lost. And there were things that I could have done, like going back, returning to my breath. I could have gone out and grounded. I didn't walk yesterday either, right? Because, I've been walking like 30 or 40 miles a week for almost a year now. So I need to take a break every now and again. And I intentionally took a break yesterday, but, so I'm not practicing these things, but I'm not like a religious zealot about them either, right? Like I give myself some grace to fuck up,
Yep.
essentially.
That's man. You said it. I have a tendency to have like an all or nothing personality, and it kind of sounds like you have the same thing, right? Um, so for example, I would be like, okay, I'm gonna start running 50 miles a week, right? And I'm also very extreme. I can be extreme, and as soon as I like miss a day, and I get hard on myself, next thing you know, I'm not running for 2 weeks, right? And then when I said, okay, you know what? I'm gonna stop doing that shit, and I'm gonna say, okay, you had a bad day, get back at it. I gave myself that grace. I'm back at it, right? I mean, that's you have to have that grace. And like you, everything I'm preaching, I do, but I have days. I'm just like you, where it's like, I don't run or I don't work out because I don't feel like it, or maybe I had a few beers. I mean, it's the thing is like we're human, and I'm not going to ever pretend that I'm perfect. That's not true. Um, but and I used to think like if I'm not perfect, how am I going to help anybody else? But that's such a lie. It's another lie to just keep you from doing what you should be doing. Um, and we rely on each other. Like this conversation helps you stay accountable. It helps you want to be better. You know.
It, I mean, it motivates me to just keep doing what I'm doing. Like it's fun. It's so much fun. Like we other than just back and forth in the comments, you and I hadn't spoken a word in person, right? And we hop on the call and we start recording, and it's like we've known each other for 10 years. You know what I mean? Like, and it's so cool, like when you get out of your own way, all the things that open up for you. And I'm curious because we all know I'm a woo woo guy. So do you have any kind of woo woo stuff that you practice? Are you a breathwork guy? Are you a yoga guy? Are you a gratitude practice guy? I feel like you might have a gratitude practice for sure. I'm getting into the abundance mindset and how powerful that stuff can be. Do you subscribe to any of those things, or do you think they're all just full of shit?
No, I think they're all legit. I think you have to find what works for you. I will never tell anybody what they're doing is full of shit or it doesn't work. No, I'm so I got into. I'm sure you heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza, right? Yeah. So I got into his stuff for a little while, and I started, meditating daily, working up at it. Um, I kind of fell off from that. I'm not saying I don't still think it works and stuff. It's amazing. Um, but I still do like breath work. Like if I notice I'm getting overwhelmed or stressed, I will stop and I will take some deep breaths and calm my mind down. Absolutely.
Isn't it
Um,
awesome how that
yes,
works?
it's
It's
weird. It's
so
like this.
cool.
It's like a release. It's same with stretching. Like if you ever sat and stretched, like afterwards, I feel like I just did deep breathing. Like it's this release um, of your body. So I would say I do a lot of that. I try to do a lot of that, like we said. But the gratitude, yeah, yeah. I think, damn, I was so negative, man. I think it's important. I'm not saying, I'm kind of probably, I don't know if I'm one of the few, but I do like that quite, that saying it could be worse. So when I'm having a bad day, I really do think about this, and I think about like where I'm living, what I have around me. Like it really could be worse.
Well,
There's
and
some
that's the
people
abundance mindset,
struggling.
right?
Yes,
That's the
there's some
abundance
people
mindset.
struggling, like struggling. Um, so yeah, it could be worse. So I go back to that.
Yeah, and it reminds me like I really like the abundance mindset stuff now because I'm working with another veteran and we started talking about that. It just came to the front of my mind. It's like I look around at like there's $5,000 worth of gear on the desk on my computer right now. A year ago, I went and had the most profound experience of my life in a third world country. And what stands out to me is two things. When I got to Peru, and I was looking around. It looked a lot like Iraq to me, believe it or not. But what I did notice was there's not a homeless problem. There's not drugs on the streets. They don't put up with that shit. And genuinely, everybody was so happy. Like really interesting to me. And then fast forward to the end of the retreat, and I'm on my way home. And I live in Florida, so I had to go through Miami to get home. As soon as I got off the airplane into the Miami International Airport, the energy in there, it was gross to me. It felt like I do not want to be here. I immediately, and we don't get political on the show because I think politics and all that bullshit, like really saps our life force from us, and it's not good. It doesn't serve me in any way, shape, or form. But the first thing I hear is somebody's pissed off because somebody else is wearing a fucking Trump shirt in the airport, and I'm like, I can I just go like turn around and get back on the airplane and go back to Peru because I don't want to deal with it. Like there's so many other important things that we could be upset and angry about, and we're choosing to focus on this fucking divide that has been created for us. And I just want it out, and that really stood out to me and stuck with me. And really, like if if I am grateful and look at everything with abundance, like life cannot be that bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I two things from what you were saying. I'll remember this to this day. I was in Malaysia, and we were walking down a dirt road or whatever, and I look over and there's like this community that's set up on the water, rickety, like I'm talking rickety, like wood bridges and stuff that you would not see here. These huts, just I mean, probably dirt poor, but I swear to God, these kids look like the happiest kids I've ever seen in my life. It was crazy. And then I look over and there's kids playing like soccer or something in this dirt parking lot, barefoot, and it's like they're so happy. And I was like, it just really stuck with me. I'm like, damn, you don't have to have all this shit around you to be happy. And and that brings me now to, and I think this is probably something that happens as you get older, but then I can't say that because I still see all this shit out there. But with politics, religion, okay, I'm with you. I'm not going to sit here and debate you politics. I don't care. What I want to do is if I ever get into a situation, I want to listen to you. Like I want to hear like I'm more interested in like why do you think the way you do? What caused you to think that way? And you are allowed to have your own beliefs. You're allowed to think what you want. You can support whoever you want. I don't care. We get so wrapped up in its emotions, right? Because emotion drives everything, everything. And it's like, but I'm tired of it. Like you said, it's so non-productive. It's like I'm not going to change you by telling you you're a piece of shit because you support so and so. Like, how is that doing anything? What I want to do, yes. Do you ever think maybe if I actually listen to you and get to know you and stuff? First of all, my goal isn't to change anybody's mind. But if you want to make change, that's the way to do it, right? Is you listen to somebody and you try to understand them and then they respect you more. I mean,
I call those adult conversations. That's what I call them. Because anymore, that's really what it is. It's not often that you can have two level-headed people with very different perspectives have a conversation, and both of parties take something away from that. And that's I think that's podcasting has allowed me to do that. Although largely what we talk about, most of us are in agreement on, but it's very obvious when you sit with somebody and they have a difference of opinion. And my ability to see that from their perspective, I think that's the biggest thing for me is like the Peru trip and all the work I've done on myself has allowed me to take the blinders off and get this like 360-degree view of the world where I have this ability to put myself in Mark Toner's shoes and see the world from his point of view based on what he's telling me and understand that his life experiences and the things that he's lived through and dealt with have shaped his opinions and try to understand those, and then I can interject my thoughts and views and opinions into that conversation. And there's oftentimes a very large middle ground there where we actually agree on a lot more than we ever thought that we would, right?
and it's so cool. Like to me, like that's what you just explained is like, I mean, that's like top level, man. And it's like, how do you? It's so hard though. We go back to leading by example, and it's so difficult to do this when you see the top politicians tearing each other down, right? And I get it though. They have to because if they don't win, if they don't have the best comeback, they're not gonna like their ratings will drop. And it's sad to me, right? Because what if you actually had a politician that went up for a debate and was like, you know what? I don't agree with that, but tell me why. Tell me why you feel that way. Or could you imagine that?
Yeah, right. Like more people, just in general, more people explaining why they're feeling what they're feeling, and I think that's the whole point of all of this, right? Like a healing journey starts with you understanding why you feel the way that you feel. And one of the coolest things I learned in that Being True to You course was taking a step back. Like for me, anger, it's a big thing. Anger has and I now know where that stems from. It stems from the way I was treated growing up, mainly by my mother. And I'm not going to badmouth my mom here, and I know that she's not perfect, and I tried to approach it from a she did the best she could thing because I'm a firstborn and there's not a fucking manual for how to be a parent, right?
Dude, yeah, we can go talk about that. Oh my gosh.
But for me it was okay, I'm angry. And the best tool I was given, okay, now think, why are you angry? Well, I'm angry because this dickhead cut me off in traffic or ran a red light, whatever the fuck it was. Okay, when have I felt angry before? And then you explore that. Well, I was angry when so and so. And it's like, okay, when have I felt angry before that? And eventually you trace it all the way back. Like what I think that's like what we talked about, the therapist putting their finger on the actual problem. You're capable of doing that without a therapist. You just have to open your mind and sit with yourself and do the work. But when you make peace and understand what triggers you and why it triggers you and why you feel that way, then you get this perspective to be able to see the world from multiple points of view and just ultimately be better for yourself, but be better for everybody else around you too. Just be a better human in general, because now you're not ignoring these things, right? Now you're giving them the necessary amount of energy that they need to either resolve or disappear completely.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're spot on with that. It all goes back to, yeah, trying to find out like the root of your behavior, I guess. And then doing that, but then also having that ownership today where it's like, okay, yeah, I've had some bad stuff happen to me, but I'm in charge now of how I continue to deal with it. And that's like obviously that's the most responsible thing to do is what you just said. You trace it back, you understand it. Um, I did the same thing, and like I said, it affected everything, man. It affected my marriage. It affected me at work. It's like you you just we're human, right? So all the toxic is going to come out, and that's why I think the more we go through and the more we deal with it, the more we can have grace for somebody else. Like, so for example, I think I mentioned this before. When I'm driving now, it's hard. Like somebody cuts me off. Okay, before, oh yeah, red. Now I'm like, what if he's trying to get to the hospital because his kid's dying, or you know what I'm saying, or what if, like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I haven't
can't.
quite made it to that level yet. I
I'm
still
not
get
there all the
angry.
time.
I still get angry, and I'll throw a cuss. Throw a slur or some kind of
Yeah,
angry
yeah.
outburst out. But then immediately following that angry outburst is like, Adam, what the fuck are you doing? You can't approach this that way. And then it's gone. It's just completely gone, and it's like I give it no energy. And so maybe that is my way of dealing with it. I say whatever I'm going to say about it because it pissed me off in that moment. I recognize that it did piss me off and that it doesn't serve me, and it's just gone, and it's not an issue anymore.
No, so that was another thing too. One of my things I discovered for myself is if you're having a bad day or if you're having negative thoughts, the worst thing, in my opinion, you can do is try to ignore them, right? So what I did, I started doing is I started journaling, and I was like, I'm not gonna pretend everything's okay. So I gave myself grace to just I write out whatever I'm feeling. Like this day fucking sucks. I don't want to be here. Um, and then what I would do is I would turn it, I'd flip it and make it more of a positive spin, where, the day didn't start out great, but, I'm going to get through this. And it really helped me because, like you said, you have to get it out. I mean, you can't just pretend. I'm not here to pretend. Okay. I'm not sit here and tell everybody that your life can be like just happy go lucky. And that's not what I'm about. Like, I'm about developing that true happiness, that true joy, but it's going to come with a price. You're going to have to go through and you're going to have to confront some things you don't want to confront. Right. And that's what it is. It's not this happy go lucky. I'm never going to have a bad day again. And that's what I don't want to preach. It's hard. It's very hard. But like you said, throwing out a couple of cuss words and stuff, but then being able to refocus and come back, shoot, I'll take that every day as a win.
Yeah, it's a much better existence than it was before. Oh yeah, for sure. Um, Man, wrapping it up here, brother. Looking forward, you've got the goals of building your own business and helping as many people as you can. So, what are some key initiatives that you want to launch? Like, what is your long term vision for what you want to do?
Well, like I said, I got the newsletter out, so I'm really focused now on just on building my brand and just reaching more people, having more conversations that will lead to, I do want to get into the coaching, like the one-on-one coaching, and really be able to help people through their struggles. And eventually, I'd like to I envision like a community, just some sort of community I can build where we're helping each other. Like people have people to go to. They can, share their thoughts, their challenges. Um, I would love to eventually do like some speaking, so I can hopefully make some real change with some of these, programs and stuff. Um, and I'm just like I said, right now, I want to just get my brand out there and just build that trust and that and that confidence with people.
You got
And
a good start, brother. So keep
oh, I
keep doing what
appreciate
you're
it.
doing, man.
And
It's
I love this, man. This has been great.
yeah. What What one piece of advice do you have for veterans getting out, going through that transition, looking to become intro/entrepreneurs? What would you want them to know about how they can make that better for themselves?
I think and it's of course it's so simple, right? But I think it really comes down to just taking action. I mean, that's the bottom line. I my saying stay positive and take action. And the reason why I came up with that is because I was the most negative person and I avoided taking a lot of action because it was uncomfortable. So that's why I constantly remind myself by putting that at the end of my posts and stuff. So for me, it's like you're going to have those thoughts, right? Me and you already talked about that. We still do. And but you got to just keep moving forward and just one step at a time. And I think good things will happen, right? Especially if you have a vision. It's just that'll be my biggest thing. And network, right? Get out there, man. Meet people because this right here, this makes me want to keep going. Just this
Hell yeah.
conversation, you know? So
Good. I'm glad, man. Tell everybody how they can connect with you, where they can find you, learn more about your work and your professional endeavors and all that good stuff.
yeah, right now it's funny you're asking me this because I thought I'd never get asked this question. But, I'm on LinkedIn, so you can look up, Mark Toner, and I mean, I should pop up. And then I'm also, like I said, I started almost 2 months ago now on Twitter, or X, so you can find me on there as well. Just preaching my message. That's really where you can find me, and I got the newsletter that I'm starting out. So, but it's Survivor to Thriver.
Survivor to Thriver. Everyone, go subscribe. I think you'll really enjoy Mark's posts, and I need to go subscribe to the newsletter. I'll do that as soon as we're done here. Everybody, help us get this in front of 1 million veterans before I turn 40 on May 9th, 2025. Lofty goal. Veteran community is the only one I think that's capable of doing that in that amount of time. So like, rate, review, subscribe, download, share it with everybody you know. I give you guys Mark Toner, MBA.
Damn, Adam, thank you so much, man. I am honored to be here. I've thoroughly enjoyed this, and I would love to do it again in the future.
Yeah, brother. Absolutely. We'll see everybody next week with another enthralling episode of The Strategic Veteran. Thanks for tuning in, and take care. That's our show, and I'm truly thankful you've joined us at The Strategic Veteran. If our conversation today sparked curiosity, or if you're ready to elevate your game, I'm here to help. Visit thestrategicveteran.com for exclusive show notes and resources, or to book a coaching session directly with me. Take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and share your review. Your support makes all the difference. For more insights and daily strategies, let's connect on LinkedIn and keep the conversation going. Remember, this isn't just a podcast, it's your strategic advantage in action. Until our next rendezvous, stay bold and continue the mission.